You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Do you want to save around 40% off Disney's prices for deluxe on-property accommodations? Contact DVC-rental.com. They help out Disney Vacation Club owners rent out points that they're not going to use. These points mean savings for you on your next trip at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Vero Beach, Florida, and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. The DVC member books everything in your name, just like any other reservation. And if you ever decide that you want to become a DVC member, you can check out our sister company, BuyAndSellDVC.com. As a licensed realtor, they sell DVC contracts for members at a savings of 30 to 40% off Disney's prices. And if you're looking to sell your contract, BuyAndSellDVC.com has one of the industry's lowest commissions at only 6.5%. Again, that's DVC-rental.com for your rental needs, and BuyAndSellDVC.com to buy or sell into the Disney Vacation Club at a large discount. And make sure you tell them that the Behind Ears podcast crew sent you.
Attention wizards and witches. The Expedition Roasters head roastmaster is pleased to announce the release of 4 new wizarding brews. Are you charming and courageous, book-smart and brilliant, big-hearted and kind, or possibly cunning and ambitious? You may have to try all 4 to find out which house roast you belong to. So cast a transporting spell over to expeditionroasters.com to begin your journey. And don't forget to continue your adventure with our large selection of pop culture-inspired themed coffees. There's always an adventure in every bag. Behind the Ears podcast fans, be sure to use the code EARS20 for 20% off your first order. That's EARS20 at expeditionroasters.com. Brew, your happy place.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Ears podcast. I am Uncle Danny. That I got the point right. I almost went this way. I'm not gonna lie, and I was like, ooh. That is Mr. Chris. Everybody, how we doing today? Glad to have you all here with us on a mischief night. Now, when I proposed this idea to Chris, Chris was like, what is mischief night? So for maybe it's a Northeast thing, I don't know. Basically what mischief night is where kids get real hyped up because tomorrow they get to go eat as much candy as their little hearts desire and dress up like scary goblins. They tend to go out and saran wrap people's cars, TP people's trees, cause mischief to the neighborhood. Let old man Johnson down the street wake up with his fist curled in the air, screaming that he's got to go clean up all that toilet paper. So on tonight's episode, what we are going to do is basically talk about all the things that we do as people inside Disney that are kind of like, what are you going to do about it? But on the other end, what are the people that it happens to? Why do they get so mad? So basically take a grind my gears episode and flip it upside down. And that's what we're going to do. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm actually doing really good. I have to admit, no, I didn't know really what mischief night is. Admits maybe because when I was a kid, if I did anything like that, my dad found out, man.
The parents don't find out.
Well, I know, but somehow my dad always finds out. It was always that kind of case. For some reason, my sister was able to get away with everything. Okay, I couldn't get away with blowing my nose in the wrong direction without like having somebody call me out on it. It was always fun, but you know, I didn't cause a lot of problems in high school and when I was a kid and stuff like that. I think I probably caused more problems now as an adult, but I don't know. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I mean, it's kind of interesting because, you know, like Danny said, we'd really like to do something different. You know, these are things that we could admit that we were that guy or that gal that did something that probably honked off another guest, and we don't care. It was kind of one of those cases where I think we all try to be good guests, but there are some things that, let's face it, some of us are none too proud of. So let me give you an example. I'll start us.
Oh boy.
This is mild. Okay, this is really mild. I'm the kind of person that, I'll admit, I don't have a qualm with saving spots for my family. You know, in other words, having my family go sit or go stand or make their order or something like that, and then I will go hunt down the perfect table over near Casey's Corner, only to have me sit there and people just like, "Are you leaving?" No, I'm not.
Okay, so you're not saying hold spots in line.
Oh no
rides.
No, I won't do that because I know that grinds my gears when people tries to do that really bad. I'm the kind of person that'll save spots at a table at an outdoor eatery or something like that, or even indoor eatery. You know, counter service type of eatery. Because I mean, how many times have you sat down at Casey's Corner, or I like to use Casey's Corner because it's always crowded, and you're there by yourself or something like that, taking up a whole table, and you have people literally hovering over you. And sometimes I'm that person hovering over you because, by gosh, I want your spot. And I know it kind of annoys people in certain manners, you know, that I do that sort of thing. I try not to be too rude about it. But if I see that you're about ready to get up and you've got a kid or two that's already up, you've already put your garbage all on one plate and you're getting ready to leave, if I see you, that table's mine and I will fight to the death for that table. It's as simple as that. That's one of the things I know it kind of annoys me. So, and I do it too, I admit it. So sometimes that's just a mild idea. We actually have some other pieces of input from our listening audience that we gathered earlier today. We'll touch base on some of those in a minute. What's one of those things that you do, Danny, that, you know, that you're that guy?
Do I start soft or do I hit you with the home run right off the bat?
Go for a nice, you know, ground rule double or something like that, Ovi.
All right. So I'm 6'1", 250 plus. We'll just leave it at that. We don't need exact weights. Plus. There's maybe like 3 pluses. So I'm large. I'm broad. I'm wide. We'll use that. I think is the best word. I'm wide. If I need to get through a crowd, I have and you know, I'll ask politely, excuse me. And if people are not moving, I will just drop a shoulder and I will turn to get past you, but I do not go slow about it. I will, you know, side shuffle like a crab, but I am using my entire body weight to push you out of the way. You get one nice Uncle Danny moment where I ask you politely, excuse me, and if you continue to chat away or be on your phone, well, then you get a little bit rougher where I will throw my body weight at you, and trust me, it's like getting hit by like a smaller bus, you know. You don't want to get hit by it.
But isn't that kind of the hockey player in you that kind of feels like in order to get where you need to go, you need to do a little body checking? I mean, there's a little bit of
the hockey player in me is the one that wants to grab your shirt and pull it over your head and smack you around a little bit when you're being obnoxious, like when you use a flash inside a ride. That's when the hockey player comes out. I'm about to smack somebody.
Listen, I will say this: if I have only done that one time, and it was completely by accident, and after it happened, I'm like, sorry. I just kind of did a nice little, you know, I was that guy. I'm really sorry. You know?
No, but you could tell when somebody is, sorry about it, because, usually it goes in their lap quickly and they kind of look around like, my bad. And then you can tell when someone doesn't care and they continuously are doing it.
Okay, so I'll give you another thing that kind of really ruins it for some people, but I do this so often I don't even realize I'm doing it. And my wife hates it when I do this. I yell at my kids for doing this, and my daughter will do it with me. And that is repeating lines from pre-show shows. In other words, we'll kind of like, we know the pre-show lines so well. We will be the people in the back reciting the entire pre-show. Kind of like, a second set of speakers behind you. And I know it annoys people, but it's just kind of one of the things that we do. I was like, that's me. So like, okay. Between that and I will sing the entire soundtrack during a ride over at Rock and Roller Coaster. It's plain and simple. You're sitting next to me. You're getting a concert by yours truly. It's as simple as that. So there you go.
All right. I you know what? I don't want to hold it anymore. I'm going to hit you with my big one.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I have to. I'm sorry. I'm not good with surprises. Hold on. Let me bring Bob out for this. So before the people, everybody starts yelling at me, I have a security blanket.
Bob's going to protect you from this, okay?
Here's the thing. I had an AP for a while, and I was going to Disney a lot. And I started to see the major flaws inside of Disney transportation. So I figure when I was at Pop or I was off site, man, I don't really want to go to TTC and park and then take the monorail in. And I sure as heck didn't want to go to any of the other parks and take the tram in. So basically, outside of Magic Kingdom, we're just going to go outside of every other park, just Magic Kingdom. I would pull up to the Polynesian, and they would ask me, do you have a reservation? I'd say, I'm actually going to Captain Cook's, because Captain Cook's is the only restaurant that doesn't take a reservation, so they can't confirm it. And they tell you, okay, go in, or they would tell you to go valet, and I would just drive the car in, go park in the spot, and go on my merry way to Magic Kingdom for the day, and then walk back to my car and leave. Now, the only reason I am ever admitting this now is because they're implementing a new rule where they're going to have non-security members at all the front hotels for deluxes at that gate checking cars in. So this is something that you can no longer do. And this was something for me that only worked at Poly. Every other hotel I had tried on the monorail, I got nabbed at. Now, there is a loophole. You can go to Boardwalk or Beach or Yacht and park there and tell them, hey, I just want to walk the boardwalk. They will allow you to do that. You're not cheating anything, because they want customers to go shop at their baristas. But Poly, Contemporary, Grand really frowned upon it, and I blame Disney, because Disney left an opening for me to take advantage of it. So I'm just saying.
So you're going to blame Disney for you being a passhole.
Yeah. Maybe fix your transportation. B, I don't know, take down the shrubbery so your security guard can see if I actually turned around or not. Yeah. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, the thing of it is that, it's one of those cases where that is one of those things. I have known that you've done that trick for quite some time.
For a long time.
And quite some time is probably kind of an understatement. The thing is that there's still, the loophole is still technically there, because they're not really sure how they're going to deal with, because it's that having that extra cast member there is, from what I understand, your mileage may vary, is mainly to try to figure out who they need to charge to park for the overnight fees if you're staying there, as a resort guest. there's still not really a lot of clarity in regards to dealing with those who are day guests, so to speak. Those who are enjoying the resort, those who are going to the restaurants, those who are shopping. But it's one of those cases. But yeah, it looks like you're gonna end up not being that guy. You're gonna have to be an honest man now, Danny. So why don't we go ahead and hit up some of the things that our friends online said. I'm going to cover the ones that for the people that actually commented over at the Behind Ears Podcast Facebook page. These are also, we're going to touch on a couple things, but also we asked people what are some of their unpopular opinions of Disney as well. Kind of a two-parter. Our friend Sharon, she goes, we use a stroller, respectfully, but I know that the very presence of them annoys some people. What is it with people? You have two camps of stroller people. You have stroller people who try to be really considerate, but then it takes them 3 times as long to get anywhere because they're being really considerate. Or you have the stroller people that use that stroller as a dangerous weapon. I'm assuming Sharon is the first category. She's not trying.
Yeah.
But, there are people that
But it turns out you do end up being that.
There are some people that really think that people with strollers are just like, oh my gosh, it's such a hassle. And I don't necessarily think so, but I can see where that annoys some people sometimes. It's really kind of interesting because, you try not to be annoying with it, but you do. You end up becoming annoyed by it. So I'm also going to touch one as well. And this is, I'm going to say this is a little bit more sensitive, and I understand where she is coming from. Our friend Mary, longtime listener. Hey, Mary, what's going on? She says, one of the things I do that grinds the gears of other guests, I use the DAS pass, and she, expects to be accommodated within reason. And she knows that some guests don't like it that people with disabilities are given accommodations. But I wish, though, people could understand how the things they are able to do easily are just not as easily done for my family. And, I wish this wasn't the case, that Mary feels this way. But unfortunately, there are people that believe that it's, I do believe there are people there that believe that those with disabilities are given special treatment, and it irritates them because they don't get that special treatment. And the only thing I would have to say to that is I really hope and pray that you never, ever have to use that pass. I know that I've gotten looks from people pushing my daughter in a wheelchair one time. And my daughter is a very athletic, very thin anti-me, so to speak. And little did people know, that she had a medical condition that messed up her knee really bad. And it's kind of like, I wish people would not necessarily, be irritated over things like that, cause issues with things like that. But I feel for Mary. And I wish people wouldn't necessarily be irritated with her over things like that. It's just one of those cases.
No, I agree. All right, I got another one.
Yeah.
I am notorious if I am in a really good mood and have a little bit of time to kill. I will almost act like a salesman, and I will get my Joffrey's cup of coffee. And I will stand in front of the Main Street Bakery where Starbucks is. And I will basically preach the word of our Lord and Savior Joffrey's and how I dislike Starbucks. And I will talk about the bold flavors you get from a Joffrey's cup that you do not get from Starbucks and how I paid half the price. I'm telling you this. I brought some business to Joffrey's. They should be thanking me. I brought some serious business to them. People give me really dirty looks. They really like there's maybe I've gone over the top once or twice with some of the things I've said.
You over the top? No.
That's what they told me. I
Dude,
didn't believe it.
I would have never have thought that.
I will just make, all right. So you know how like your daughter will like, if like a smoker's being unfair to everybody around them, and she'll like loudly cough so they know. Remember you telling those stories?
Yeah. She'll be the person that makes it very well known to anybody smoking or vaping that it's not in the smoking section, that you should not be there. And that, that's that girl of mine. She's not going to make it, nonchalantly type of thing. She's don't mess with my daughter. Simple as that. Because I'm going to back off and just say, "Hey, you want to unleash her? Go right ahead."
And I've maybe had a very strong opinion about Joffrey's compared to Starbucks, and I may or may not be a tad boisterous about it. Listen, it's all in good fun, but I do mean it. But it is all in good fun. And I realize that I tick a lot of people off. Mary says it best. I have very strong opinions. Please don't get me started on Pizza Rizzo. Because I keep saying Rizzio, like the hockey player. Side note, long story, inside joke. But besides that,
it wasn't until
I do have really strong opinions, especially about food inside Disney. And I feel like it is my civic duty to let you all know that you are making a major mistake by drinking Starbucks.
Civil duty.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a fair way to look at it.
Civil duty. That's really interesting. I know Rudy basically also said Joffrey's is only good for the booze.
Yeah, and I did not know that all this time going to Joffrey's, I did not know that you can add liquor to said coffee.
And now you're just like, oh, well, yeah, totally. Mm-hmm, yeah, sure. Uh-huh. But, I could see that. Well, the interesting thing is you made mention about being that big guy that likes to, maybe not so politely, relocate people, so to speak. Our friend John basically said the same thing. He's like, I'm a big guy, but I could weave my way through a crowd pretty good by, and he says in quotes, politely pushing and shoving my way through. Lol. If not, I'll stand uncomfortably behind you until you move, but only if I'm in a hurry.
I gotta try that one.
Wow. So, this is like complete...
It's super creepy. I love it.
A complete invasion of space. It's like, hello, I'm right behind you. I've been waiting for 15 minutes while you get off your phone.
just dead silent, dead stare, just right behind them. Super creepy.
I do. I'll tell you. I will tell you this. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, and I do try to be a good guest. But if someone decides, especially in a big crowd, I try to have a habit of walking like I drive. Right? I stay to the right. I try to keep up with the flow of traffic. I try not to follow too closely. But sometimes, especially like if I happen to be stuck in an area where it's heavy traffic because fireworks or something just let out, you are going to be, the equivalent of bumper to bumper traffic on a Friday afternoon, getting out of Chicago. And quite honestly, if you stop right in front of me for no apparent reason, I will be the one that I'll make a comment and I'll try to make it funny, but sometimes it doesn't come out funny. Like, geez, signal before you stop, man. Get your brake lights checked or something. I'll try to be humorous about it, but it's mainly to try to indicate the fact of, dude, you're walking horribly. If I
you're walking, get out of my way, man.
Well, the thing is, it's not even. I've done this before by accident, and maybe that's why I try not to do it. But I try not to get into people's way. If I know I'm going to stop, I will pull aside if I possibly can. Or I'll look behind me, I'll like, stop, hold on, even if there's people that I don't know behind me. But people who just, oh, let me take a selfie here, right in the middle of everything and everybody. No, no, no. This is not the time for you to take a selfie. And if you take a selfie, it's going to have me in it. I hope you enjoy that. And ask my daughter sometime about her selfie stories, because my daughter is a photo bomber extraordinaire. I'm sure there are many people that have
and that grinds my gears so much.
What? Someone photobombing?
Yeah.
She will not photobomb unless she just so happens to be there, and she doesn't purposely get into the picture. But if she knows she's going to be in the picture, she just may do it.
Fair enough.
No, she's not she'll purposely photobomb me, but she won't hey, there's Danny. I'm going to go photobomb Danny. No.
No, I mean, I would expect her to do it to me.
I know.
If someone randomly did it to me, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to smack you in the side of the head. Heather's got one.
What's Heather got?
And it's something that goes along with mine, so I figured it worked out perfectly. I know what I do that annoys others. I smoke in the actual smoking section. Gasp! And people still complain. It is 110% true. Listen, smoking is bad. Smoking is unhealthy. Smoking is a terrible thing.
At least you admit
I choose to do it.
Sure.
I choose to put my life in danger. Mm-hmm. Now, you might say, hey, it is unfair for me to have to breathe in your dirty air. Okay, fair enough. But, like Heather says, you will be in the designated smoking section. You do not pick where the smoking section is. If Disney happens to put it in the wrong area, once again, not the smoker's fault. If the smoker is standing on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train line outside and just chain smoking, we have a problem. I would agree with the non-smokers there. But if it is in the designated area, and I do apologize for the non-heavy Disney goers that maybe don't know certain things, like the one that used to be behind Great American Speedway, where it's now where Tron's going to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who walk through there who didn't know, or they just remember it as being when they were younger, oh, it's a good cut through. And that is the biggest smoking section on Disney property.
Right.
So you are going to be walking through the most heavily populated park in Disney, walking through the biggest smoking section in Disney. And it does get to be, worry. It is rough. And trust me, I've seen people bring their kids in there. I'm like, man, oh man. But you got to do what you got to do. But I get where she's coming from. It stinks on both parties. It really does. Because I understand the non-smokers. I date a non-smoker. She hates the fact that I smoke, but she respects the fact that I try to do it fairly and kindly to others. And me being a smoker, I know what it's like to get those dirty looks. And it's rough. It's one of those real things that catch 22.
Well, I got one more item when it comes to the reverse grind my gears, and then there's a lot of people that also answered the question of what's your unpopular opinion regarding Disney, and we're going to touch base on those here for the second half of our program. But I got this one via private message, and they asked to remain anonymous, which I'll respect because I do think it's actually pretty good, and basically, this is the one thing that she admits that she does, and she actually gets a lot of stares over, and that is the idea that she streams, she does some live streaming, but then she admits that she also tries to interact with people in those live streams and trying to be heard in the live streams while a show is going on.
No, I can't do that.
And I'm just like, yeah, I can understand, because if someone was, doing that behind me, that's actually worse than me being the person to repeat all the lines of a particular show or pre-show for that matter. And, all these things, if you think about it, are all things that we have admitted that we do. And we're not, to not necessarily be good guests, we annoy others by doing it. I guess the best way of saying is maybe it's time for us to stop and really really look at ourselves, make sure that we try not to annoy people by accident or on purpose for that matter. Trying to make sure that our habits are in check with, what I guess people can consider good guest etiquette. But is there such thing as good guest etiquette anymore? I mean, I've had,
do your best.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. There are people that disagree over a lot of different things. Like Chris Hiller, our great friend and man on the street, says, "I don't deal with kids on shoulders in front of me. I make myself get in front of them and put my phone up in their face." Oh my gosh!
I respect that.
What was that?
I respect that. That's a power move.
Yeah, I mean, but then also, people like this. Kevin also mentions, how about the 6-foot giant who stands in front of my 5'2" wife and then puts his kid on the shoulder during the fireworks? Kevin, have you heard my stories before? Because that's almost exactly what has happened to me in the past. Things like that. Nick, our great friend Nick, who he and Jess are at Disney right now. He basically says, Jess almost ran a little kid over because the kid wasn't paying attention. Mom gave dirty looks and Jess just shrugged the shoulders and kept on walking. And I mean, that's like, oh, come on. I mean, parents need to take care of their kids. Parents need to parent while you're at Disney still. I hate to say it. It's just one of those things. And I just think that we try to be good guests, but I think sometimes we make some mistakes. Chris does say, I try to keep my phone only in front of the area that my head is in so it doesn't obstruct others. And he is referring to the streaming comment. Some people put it right in front of people with no regards. And yeah, Chris, I'll tell you, not this past summer, but summer before, I went to see Rivers of Light with my wife. There was a woman sitting in front of me that had her phone up and directly in my line of sight. And I could see that she's streaming on Facebook. 0 live viewers. And I'm just like, I just basically said, put your phone down. I said, put your phone down. I can't see. Put your phone. She eventually did. But it was also one of those cases where I was like, come on. Seriously. I understand you want people to see your Disney vacation, but it's just one of those cases. I try not. I certainly don't do that when I'm trying to take pictures or video recording or anything like that. But still, any last ones before we go on to the second part of our show?
Guest etiquette is interesting because you bring up the Mr. Anonymous or Mrs. Anonymous about being a streamer.
Yeah.
And I will say, once upon a time, I streamed for a particular site while I was on vacation a few times. Mm-hmm. And I will gladly pat myself on the back and say that till this day, I have higher numbers on those streams than any of their current streamers do. It's all about personality, people, and not shaking a camera. Be mindful if you are a streamer, because you might get there more often than the average bear does. So I understand that you are bringing joy to people who are not there, but do not take away joy for the people who are there. Not everything needs to be captured by a screen, and the more equipment you attach to a camera does not make you cooler. I promise you. Nowadays, minimal equipment is what is desirable and could do the job. So I'm just getting tired. It's not a dig at anybody in particular. I just know of a lot of streamers, and there are a lot of you out there that have a crap ton of equipment. And I know your numbers. You don't need a crap ton of equipment. Just go enjoy Disney. You want to stream a little? Stream a little. But guest etiquette, especially during shows. Do not talk during a show. Listen, if I am watching Rivers of Light and I am streaming Rivers of Light, I apologize if you are commenting on my stream while I'm doing that. I'm not answering you at that exact moment. I'll try to remember and get back to you after. But during a show or a ride, your people that are filming can wait. People that are watching you film can wait.
I want to tell you something. I was actually part of a conversation. There is a popular streamer or YouTuber, Paging Mr. Morrow, And great guy. Got a chance to meet him this past summer, very, very briefly. Albeit, I wish it was a lot longer of a time I could have sat and had a chat with him. We were talking about he does a lot of live streaming on YouTube from the parks, and he's got a really good following. Really, really cool guy. And the interesting part is that there was kind of the conversation going on about commenting during streams and how you just can't get to every one of them. And which is a very true statement. And the fact of the matter is that, there are the really good streamers don't make comments during shows. They'll do it later. They purposely try not to interact with everybody because it could be disruptive to the people around you, the people, they're trying to watch the show in front of you, that sort of thing. Like what we do here during our live recording sessions, usually the next day, a lot of times the next morning, and lately I've been doing it right after the show, is I will go ahead and comment on the comments that were made that maybe we didn't get to. And we try to go ahead and comment, but we don't comment on every last comment. We do read every one of them. We may not necessarily comment on every last one of them. But it's just one of those cases, really good seasoned streamers will try not to be that guest. And I've, as I said, Paging Mr. Morrow really does a really good job, really good streams, very professional. So that's just my 2 cents. As I say, your mileage may vary. Should we go ahead for the next few minutes, talk about some of the unpopular opinions that our listeners happen to have?
Yes, I would love to hear what our devilish listeners are doing.
Our devilish listeners, I tell you, we've got some of the best listeners. And I think here's the nice part. Every last one of these comments actually makes a lot of sense in a lot of cases. And a lot of these actually come from observations that are very recent, like within the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to read the ones that people posted earlier first. And if we have a chance, we'll go through some of the comment section as well. So let's see. Some of the unpopular opinions. Excuse me for a second. Sorry about that, everybody. So John, who is a good friend of mine, I happen to know John really well. He goes, regarding the first one, he believes that there's not enough resort buses. He goes, I know it's an expense to move people around, but he's also hoping that the future Skyliner helps things out. You know what? There's a lot of people that say that Disney transportation in itself is kind of lacking, but there are also people like me who think that, things tend to work out pretty well 90% of the time. But there's a lot of people that actually have that kind of feeling that, there's not enough resort buses. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he stayed at Coronado this past trip. He just actually got back just a day or two ago. I know that you're not a Disney transportation fan yourself.
How long did you wait for that Disney bus the first time we met, leaving Springs that night? You waited for a while to get back to a deluxe.
You know what it was? This was a combination of things. Once I got to the right bus, bus area, I only had to wait about 10, 15 minutes. The problem of it is that at that time, which was quite late, that, admittedly speaking, what happened was that the labeling of the transportation was not done well. And I ended up having to talk to a transportation cast member to figure out where I'm going to go. And then after that, after about 10 or 15 minutes after you and I said goodbye, then, I had a bus and it took me right where I needed to go.
That's my point, though. You had to wait 10 to 15 minutes after that at that late hour. Yeah,
but I'll be honest with you. Disney Springs is like the only place that I think that bus transportation definitely lacks in a lot of cases. I consider it different than transportation to the parks. I don't really have a problem with the transportation to the parks. Transportation to Disney Springs, I tell you one thing, that's why I like staying at Saratoga Springs, if you want to know the truth. A nice little jaunt, get on a water taxi, or take for a nice stroll. that's why I love Saratoga Springs so well. So I don't have to.
You take the
on
water taxi to Saratoga Springs?
No, I catch the water taxi right by the entrance to Saratoga Springs if I want to go to the other side. Down by where House of Blues, Cirque du Soleil, where Disney Quest used to be, and that way I can just go all the way over there, and it's a nice little trip. And also, I'll tell you the truth, you get some really cool pictures that way.
Yeah, well, it's nice too if you go on that side, and then you work your way back to the resort.
Yeah,
saves on walking.
So. Also, I'm going to go ahead and say this from another person. It's Chris. Again, he and this is his unpopular opinion. He goes, I think Walt's idea of only Disney transportation gets you into the Magic Kingdom is very outdated and needs to change. And basically, for those who may not necessarily realize what's being talked about, the fact of the matter is that the Magic Kingdom really is kind of, I'll say, cordoned off, so to speak, where the only way to get into the Magic Kingdom is that you either have to go in by monorail, or you have to go in through a bus, or you have to go in through the ferry. And, the fact of the matter is that you don't have parking trams that will go from your car directly to Magic Kingdom. You have to take yet another form of transportation. And I think that's kind of a good point. Although I think, and this is just me thinking about it, just going back to the way back days, back when Walt Disney World was first created and it was just the Magic Kingdom, it's almost like you had to build anticipation. You really wanted to build anticipation as for, hey, I'm going to the Magic Kingdom. Hey, I'm getting a little bit closer to the Magic Kingdom. Hey, guess what? Really close to the Magic Kingdom now. Hey, we're at the Magic Kingdom, and that was probably it. But I do have to agree that if you've ever looked at the lines for the monorail, as well as for the ferry, especially to try to get out over to either one of the monorail resorts or the TTC, holy cannoli! That's amazing. I kind of have to. Put a little mind there, so to speak. I got one more, and then I'll let you chime in. Our friend John Paul, mentions, and this is his unpopular opinion, people need to remember that Disney is a for-profit company with stockholders, and they do need to raise prices at times and look where to reduce expenses. Not saying that it's popular, but it's business.
See, I'll fight that, though.
What's that?
Because at times I believe it's bad business.
Well,
there was no reason in a calendar year to raise your prices twice.
Yeah, even though they
that to me is getting greedy.
They do it traditionally.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I'm saying they do it traditionally. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, they do it traditionally. I see John's point. I also see your point very clearly. It's one of those cases where, well, we've talked about this. The idea that, everybody should basically be prepared for, price increases, because it's one of those things that just happens. It's, you can't really do much about it, although it is something we don't really like it all that much. Let's see. And
I want to throw something in perspective for that, though.
Sure.
Okay. So I've been told I'm bougie. I've been told that I know how to spend money. I don't know. I've never said that.
Okay, I'll go back to the recordings.
That you can't prove it right now, so technically I win. Case closed.
Okay.
Pass the bar exam.
You've never passed the bar.
I like... I do. I can spend money quicker than I can make it. I was talking to Chris about this the other day. I've done all inclusives. I've traveled to different countries. I've done my fair share of traveling as a human. To literally stay at Disney for 7 nights, club level. So we're not getting a suite. We're not doing it. We're just getting club level, which does include some hors d'oeuvres, a little picky eating food, a own private building, some beer and wine. So there is a little more than the average stay. I am staying at a deluxe resort on the monorail. I do get all that. But for a 7-night, 8-day stay at Polly's club level in between now and the summer, for me and Lindsay, was running us $7,200. There's something wrong with that.
$7,200.
Yeah.
I didn't pay that for Virginia's car.
Yeah. For a week's vacation.
Yeah.
And that's not counting if you want to eat in the park. That's not counting hotel transportation. That's not counting any tips left at the hotel. That's not counting souvenirs. That's not counting flight. That's not counting parking for flight, tolls to get to flight.
It's a lot.
All in all, if you really, I could easily spend $10,000 in a week. Now, granted, they give you options not to. I get that argument. Yeah. I'm just saying I've stayed club level at some very nice hotels. That's expensive.
Let me throw this out because over on the Behind Ears Podcast Facebook page, our friend Sharon actually made a comment here, and it kind of goes along with what you said. She says Disney is taking away the magic and stressing out cast members. In my opinion, which may or may not be correct, Disney is creating a lot of paid events to keep regular guests out of areas they used to go to experience some Disney magic by making so many elite/exclusive events that keep regular guests out of an area, etc. They've also created a group of entitled people, and the entitled people are really putting a strain on the cast members by expecting magic everywhere they go. I know that's a terribly unpopular opinion, but you asked. and you're right. And you're right, Sharon. But let me go ahead and I'll let you go first because it's a kind of a continuance of what you were talking about. I'll pause for a minute. I'll answer after you.
Entitled people, yes, but I think that's also our society. Stress on the cast members, I could see that, but as the years have gone on, I have seen more attitudes from cast members. Now, granted, you don't know how their day started or what they've dealt with prior to you walking up to them, but at the same time, as Walt's vision was never to be that. Now, granted, times have changed. The elite comment, I mean, you don't really have to be elite to do it. You just have to have a really good travel agent that's going to be able to guide you on how to maximize your stay with a hard ticket event. Yeah. And about keeping people out of an area outside of the hard ticket events like Halloween, Christmas, just those two really, in Magic Kingdom, and them cutting the doors off at 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock technically. None of the other events or anything really encumber space where as a guest you are limited outside now those two parties are major, especially if you don't know what the heck's going on and you plan for a Magic Kingdom day and it gets cut short. I can see how that stinks, but outside of those two parties, I mean, think about all the things. Listen, they could technically charge us more for World Showcase during wine and food, and they don't think that they haven't thought about that. They could hit you for Flower and Garden for a hard ticket, which they don't.
But
I think they are. Yeah,
there's probably the idea that lately they've been having the special ticketed morning event that starts really super early at like 7:30 in the morning, and you get breakfast and you get access to a certain number of rides before before rope drop, the normal rope drop, and it's a relatively pricey event. And there's also the Disney After Dark events, which again, it's a very it's a rather pricey extra event at night that people seem to really enjoy when they do it. But again, it is pricey. It's like it'd be over $400 for my family of 4, and I think that's kind of what Sharon is probably getting at. Sharon, by all means, if I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, I do apologize. I'll run with it for now with all respect. And the fact of the matter is that, someone actually commented in this particular thread the idea that all these things are optional. And the fact is they're extras that if we wanted to do those types of things, you can, but it's not necessarily going to cause you to have a missing link in your vacation if you choose not to do it. I mean, I like the Christmas party. I like the Halloween party. Obviously, I don't go down there every Christmas or Halloween seasons to enjoy them, but I have done them in the past. I will probably do them again in the future.
Yeah.
But, in fact, to tell you the truth, one of the best times I ever had at Animal Kingdom, they had extra magic hours in the evening on Halloween, and nobody was there. It was epic. Everybody was at the Halloween party.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I totally get it. But, the thing is that Disney, hey, listen, I would love to experience some of those different events. I would love to experience VIP tours. I would love to experience, some of the other tours that Disney puts out as well. Maybe I'll try these things. It all depends on how I decide to do Disney that trip. But I can understand where some people really want to do those things. It's just out of their budget. I totally get it. And at the same time, I think, I think Disney does a good job of making sure that everybody could still have a very satisfying vacation without those particular items. That's all I have to say about that.
No, I agree where you're coming. Listen, at the end of the day, we can all complain that club level's $7,000. We can all complain there's these hard ticket items, but these things sell and there's a demand for it. Where was it brought up? Christine says, I saw a lot of people saying after the last price increase, they weren't going anymore and they weren't renewing their annual pass. I also saw a lot of people who said if a particular person won the presidential election, they were moving to Canada. These are all strong words until you have to actually do something. And at that moment, nobody does anything. It's the same thing. I was real pissed. I was real upset about the idea of, oh my God, you're jumping up like 8%. But then I thought about it. It's like, okay. And like we've talked about on the shows, you sit down, you recalibrate with your family and you figure out what's the best possible way to go.
Aaron kind of made our friend Aaron Del Prince kind of made a comment about that in the sense of, hey, reasonable price increases are very much understandable. A couple percent, 3%. But when you're talking 8 to 10%, it starts to get kind of crazy. I'll be honest with you. And I'm not saying this as a plug for being a DVC member, but I will tell you this. I don't think I would be able to do the kinds of vacations I do without being a member of the Disney Vacation Club.
No, because you stay a lot of deluxe too.
I do, and that is how I want to do Disney. But what I'm saying is that I would not. I would. It's not me being bougie as well, because I do stay at values as well.
Mm-hmm. You do.
I do, and I like them. Other members of my family tend to not as well. But the thing is, if I had a choice between staying at a value and not going, I'm sure heck staying at a value. I find them to be very nice. In fact, I really enjoyed Art of Animation. And
I know you have said that.
I really do like it. But here's the deal. The fact of the matter is, if I wasn't a DVC member, I would really have to change how I do Disney and how often I do Disney. And so, now I did that, I joined over 10 years ago. It's very much paid for itself and then some. I'm seeing a lot of savings because of it. I'm able to afford things like tickets, a whole lot easier. I'm not hit by those inflationary measures as much as everybody else is right now. So
that's why the AP was great.
Yeah.
You could get those great flights and those great hotels. And, it's completely different than DVC, but you were eliminating one cost while AP members out of state were eliminating another. Yep. It made life so easy. And I wish I would have known, and here's a shameless plug for DVC-rental. because they have those deals that are up there all the time. Where if I had my AP, I'd be like, wow, let's go. You know, I'm gonna go away for a weekend. I'm gonna go stay at Poly for $700-800 for a weekend, and just to get that out of my system. But the problem is when you start adding these hotels and then the ticket increase, it's not like they did one or the other. When they increased everything, that's where it really hurt the pockets. Do we have anything else from our listeners?
Yeah, actually, let me scroll down here a really bit. Let's see. Well, Rick actually makes the comment. He goes, "I like IP in the parks." And by the way, for those who don't know, IP stands for intellectual property or branding. If you are not sure of that, he goes, "I like IP in the parks. There have been characters in the parks for decades, and he doesn't see what the big deal is." And this is kind of referring to a lot of the changes Disney has been making along the lines of new attractions that have different character tie-ins. You have Guardians of the Galaxy as having a roller coaster, Frozen Ever After, replacing Maelstrom, and we all know that everybody went ape crap over that one. You're going to have a Ratatouille ride, which is obviously tied in with the movie. Star Wars, everybody's, Star Wars seems to be one of those things where everybody's either loving it or hating it, and they said, and the funny part about it is that a lot of those same people also, I won't say same people, there was a same type of group of people that said the same thing about Pandora. You don't see, but now they're like, oh, it's totally awesome. There's just so much that's going on within Disney, and Disney has some awesome intellectual property. It makes sense to include it in the parks. There are some people that don't want to see that. I like to see a blend. I'll admit, it sounds more middle of the road. I want to see a blend. Is this one of those cases? So that's just my 2 cents on that one. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and bring one last one up, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, and then we'll start winding it down. I know there's a ton of people that are scrolling through the comments and stuff like that. They're making comments, and I will have to answer them offline, but Brenda makes a very strong comment here, and I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this verbatim. "We just got back, and it seems like a lack of cast member enthusiasm. I understand crowds and heat aren't a great mix, but actually encountered a couple of snappy CMs. I was talking to a few people that said Disney has lost a lot of its magic. On the other side of the coin, our resort was full of great cast members. Also paid for Not So Scary, we had first 3-timers thinking wait times would be drastically reduced. Not the case. Seemed to be oversold." Let me chime in, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. Maybe on every trip, I run into maybe one unmagical cast member. And I'm defining as unmagical cast member as somebody that just was, I'm nice to everybody. And that's not an exaggeration. I am a nice guy. I try to be in every aspect. But if someone snaps at me for asking a question or something to that extent, that's not cool. If you're not totally magical, if you're not, super smiley and having a zippity-doo-dah day, that's just, okay, you're being human. I'm not going to say that you're unmagical because you didn't, cover me with pixie dust or something like that. I'm just, I have to chalk it up to, hey, some of those days are very long for those cast members. But most cast members I run into are fabulous. And, I try to be nice to people all the time. And you know what? I usually find that and by the way, Brenda, this is not directed at you, but I'm going to say this. I think a lot of times cast members are reflective, meaning that they reflect the attitudes of the guests from which they have to work with. And quite honestly, I have seen cast members get totally belittled and berated by guests. And unfortunately, you know what that means? The next guest that they have to work with may get a little bit of overflow backlash. And I'm hoping that was accidental. And Brenda, you may have seen that, but in many cases where you were obviously probably the good guest. But I'm also going to take a wild guess that they probably had to deal with some not so magical guests either. And that's really sad too, because, it's just not fair. Cast members work their tails off, no matter what their role is, in order to give us a great time. And I can't stand it when I see a guest just be a jerk. It really irritates me. So, your thoughts?
Oh man, this is tough.
Is it
my closing argument? I'm going to agree and disagree. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. It's so tough. It's all right. Is the magic gone from the situation inside this? At times I do feel it, and at times I feel that we brought it upon ourselves. Where we can all say with rising prices, like we talked about a few minutes ago. It is troublesome because we all have our own issues back home, and the Disney bubble isn't really the Disney bubble anymore. With social media being so readily available at your hand, it kind of takes away from the moment when you're supposed to be inside that bubble. For the cast member comment, I think some of the cast members coming in now are coming in with the attitude of being entitled. They want more money. Not saying they don't deserve more money, but some of the cast members, the younger generations that are making their way in, they feel that they're being underpaid for the amount of work they have to do. And they don't look at it as a great opportunity to be working for a fabulous company. They're more looking at it as a retail job, and they're getting treated like garbage. Now, on the flip side, before you all freak out, they are also dealing with more arrogance now than any other cast members ever had to deal with. Not saying that people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s didn't deal with arrogance, but arrogance inside the everyday guest is that bad right now. Guests are getting nastier and nastier as the days go on inside Disney. So I get where both people are coming from. It is extremely tough to leave that baggage at the front door. I wish that some cast members would maybe understand, just because you dealt with a bad customer, a bad patron of the park, not to take it out on the next one. But I forgot who said it, but said it perfectly. Mary, they're human too, and they absolutely are. Now, I wanted to touch on something, but what was the beginning of that question, that statement? It was the cast members losing the magic.
Let's see. Basically, cast members losing enthusiasm. But basically, at the resort had great cast members. But
I got it. It was the Halloween party you were talking about.
That's the last part.
Okay. I have said it from day one. They continuously oversell the Halloween parties, because you have seen them add. They have gone all the way back into August now, and they sometimes aren't selling out because they're not recording properly. I'm not saying Disney's cooking the books, excuse me, by any stretch of the imagination, but they are entirely overselling. I was at a Halloween party 2 years ago, and it got from verbatim for a head supervisor in Magic Kingdom, told me, can't use names, obviously, they oversold that party by 10,000 people. You don't accidentally oversell a party by 10,000 people. You don't. That's not a clerical issue. That's not a, oh boy, we let in an extra 100 people. Okay. You let in 10,000 extra people. That's a money grab. So I will say this. What you used to know for Disney's for the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween parties as it's a hard ticket event, there must be less people in the park. Times are less. You also need to realize as they oversell these parks, these hard ticket events, they're not opening all the rides to everybody. There's only a select amount of rides open. So that means you're overselling something, but cutting down the operation, those are going to become long wait times. And I absolutely agree. And Justin says it best. Not only do they oversell, but they understaff. I know this for a fact. Very true. And I feel bad for those people who are working those hard ticket events because I was one of those angry people standing inside Magic Kingdom saying, this is ridiculous. I paid $130 and I could barely trick or treat. I was upset. Some of us got our money back. Others did not. But yeah, that's why it was one of those, I half agree with her statement, half don't agree with her statement.
Let's think about it this way. I don't necessarily know if they're overselling or if they are just raising the bar as to, they're just raising the bar as to what they will allow. Because obviously to say that they're overselling makes it sound like they're going over capacity at the park. We know that's not going to happen, but they are but they are overselling against what people have expected in the past. Because I do remember going to, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party when it was just my daughter and she was really young. And the park really was, very, very light traffic, very, very light crowds. And we had an absolute blast. And, as we did the party again a couple times, as my son was little and as he grew up and this, that, and the other, it did seem like there was more contention in trying to do the special events. And that's one thing that you and I have always told people. Go and try these special ticketed events. Do the things that you wouldn't normally do at the Magic Kingdom. Or whatever. Yeah. Do what you can to enjoy the specialness of that event. And sometimes it's difficult to do that. So that's my take. Is that sometimes, I think our expectations are different. We think it's a special ticketed event. It's going to be limited to the number of people. And in reality, that bar has been raised. I may not necessarily go as far as you did and call it a money grab, but I'm going to say that I think expectations have to be reset at the guest level. And that is really super hard to do.
Yeah. All right, Chris, with that being said, why don't you take us away?
Sounds like a plan. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home.
All right, so I am not sure the exact release date of this show, but for whatever odd reason, it does get out by tomorrow, and you are listening to this, and it is Halloween. Well, happy Halloween! Go eat some candy, dress up, scare some people, make sure you answer the door, and don't be that jerk that takes them more than one candy bar out of the bowl. I will say this is my PSA to the few people that are left watching us. Tomorrow night is a night where kids dress up. Tomorrow night is a night where kids dress up in very dark clothing. Tomorrow is a night where kids dress up their parents are talking with other friends, they're hyped up on sugar, they want more candy, they dart. Please be mindful. If you are a person that habitually speeds through your neighborhood, that's on you. But maybe, just maybe, for tomorrow night, bring that back. If your neighborhood is 25 miles an hour, why don't you bring it back to 15? Because getting home that extra minute and a half later is going to be way better than hitting a child or a parent or anything. So let's just keep it safe out there, guys. With that being said, thanks for following us. Thanks for listening to us. We are Behind the Ears Podcast. I am Uncle Danny. That was Mr. Chris. We had a fantastic show. We were glad to have such a fantastic audience tonight. Like Chris says, follow us on all the social media platforms. Trisha would kill me if I didn't mention it. Join the WDW community. And if you guys ever have a topic for a show or anything you'd like to discuss with us, you can always find us on Facebook at Behind the Ears Podcast, or simply email us at behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. With that being said, everybody, once again, wear your seatbelts. Let's slow it down a little tomorrow night and eat lots and lots of candy. I am Uncle Danny. Until next time, happy Halloween.
And I'm Mr. Chris. I just also want to say thank you for being an awesome audience. Thank you for the really good comments. We are really glad that we can have good conversations on this particular show. We know that everybody has good opinions. You guys have always given us good topics to talk about. And, quite honestly, we know that this show is full of Disney influencers, including ourselves. And you know what? Those are the kinds of conversations that we have. Maybe other people don't want to do it. We love to have those conversations, and we always do it with love, dignity, and respect, even though I can't say the word dignity. But we just appreciate the openness, the candor, and of course, all of your support. But until we meet again, we hope you have an absolutely magical day. Take care.